Have you ever had a moment where you just needed a little more time? Or felt like time was slipping away faster than it used to? As you get older, time feels like it's moving faster, and at some point, you wonder if this is where you thought you'd be in life by now. The people and things that once made up your everyday life slowly become memories. But what if you could live forever? What if you never had to say goodbye, never had to let go? All the plans you've made, they'd eventually come true. Maybe not today, maybe not even a few years, but someday for sure. And just knowing that time can't hold you back anymore, that alone feels like hope. But that's not how it works now, is it? Eventually, you'd reach a point where you'd start to wonder, what does it actually mean to never die? What would you have to give up? Your body, your soul, the very idea of being you? And then you realize how miserable that would actually be to never ever have to come to an end. Now imagine someone comes to you with a choice. Would you rather live a life of bliss forever in an artificial paradise? Or, knowing there's no hope left for you in the real world, would you accept that it's over and let go? Would you cling to whatever version of you could continue, even if it meant another version of you would live on? Or would you just surrender to oblivion and accept that your time is over? Just think about it. Could you really make that decision in the moment? Or would you really need more time to think this through? SOMA is a game that doesn't force these choices on you. It gives you time to absorb, to understand everything you need to actually feel like you can make that choice and live with it. Your choices don't change the fate the game has already written, but they do stay with you long after the credits roll and long after you've turned the game off. SOMA is one of those rare, underrated games that don't come around often, but to really understand why the dilemma this game presents is so hard to wrap your head around, we first need to see what actually happens in the story, and how each event perfectly builds up to the final question it leaves you with. You play as Simon Jarrett, an ordinary guy from Toronto in 2015. Simon was recently in a devastating car crash, leaving him with severe brain trauma and internal bleeding. Doctors had no solutions and he was now living on borrowed time. Desperate for a cure, Simon volunteered for an experimental brain scan, a highly promising but untested procedure led by David Munshi, a graduate student researching advanced neurography. Munshi wasn't a doctor, but he believed that by digitally capturing and mapping every neuron connection and pattern inside Simon's brain, they could create a perfect virtual replica of his mind. Once Simon's brain was fully scanned, Munshi could safely run countless medical simulations on this digital copy. They could test and retest potential treatments, exploring every possible outcome without ever harming Simon's actual brain, hoping that one simulation would reveal the cure to save his life. Simon was a little hesitant at first, but hope pushed him forward. He sits in the scanner chair and Munshi starts the machine.
Good. All files in order.
Will this hurt?
It's just a scan. It'll hurt about as much as getting your picture taken.
Indians thought cameras would steal their souls.
That's so. Well, let's hope they're wrong. Ready? Say cheese.
There's this flash of light and then nothing. Everything goes black. When Simon opens his eyes, he's no longer in the clinic anymore. Something feels wrong.
Hello?
Mr. Munshi? Did something go wrong? How did I get here?
Cold steel walls, unfamiliar machines, diving suits hanging from the walls. The place feels abandoned but not empty. Damaged robots and bizarre biomechanical growths cover the corridors, black sludge pulsing and dripping from vents and cables, as if it was alive. He hears unsettling noises nearby but pushes forward anyway, searching for answers. Eventually, he finds an Omni tool, an advanced device that talks to him and lets him unlock doors and navigate deeper into this place. He steps into a tunnel and freezes in shock. He's underwater. Wherever he is, it's at the bottom of the ocean. Simon comes across a robot hooked into a power station, but the facility needs power it's using, so he's forced to unplug it, and as he does, the robot starts begging and pleading not to be shut down.
I need it. Why? I was okay.
Simon can't make any sense of this. But now, with the power restored, a woman's voice comes through the intercom.
Upsilon, what's going on?
I have no idea. I just sort of woke up here.
In the room right now?
It was like a seat with a helmet.
Is that right? And what's your name?
I'm Simon Jarrett.
And what do you... damn relays. Where are you now?
Someplace dealing with electrical power. I'm not sure if it's a plant or a transformer.
Yeah, you're probably in a thermal plant somewhere. You want to go upstairs to the comm center. It's the room with the dome ceiling.
She urges him to go to the communications center. But on his way, one of the broken robots, covered in the same pulsing biomechanical growth, isn't broken anymore. It's moving, searching, looking for him now. He manages to evade it and reaches an assembly line, where another damaged robot lies, unable to move. But this one speaks clearly, and introduces itself as Carl.
What are you?
Are you blind? It's me, Carl Semke. Wrangler? Any of this sound familiar to you?
No, actually.
Simon insists Carl isn't human, but the robot adamantly believes otherwise.
Are you human?
Shit, did my body give it away? I try hard staying a mystery. Yeah, I'm human. Are you?
When Simon diverts power again to access communications, Carl begins screaming in agony, human screams of unbearable pain. Horrified, Simon searches for help, only to come across something deeply disturbing. A corpse. Not just any corpse. The ID tag reads Carl Semken, the same Carl who just spoke to him in the room down the hall. Shaken and confused, Simon reaches the comm center and finally makes contact with the mysterious woman. Her name is Catherine, and she seems just as lost as Simon. She tells him he's at Pathos-II, an underwater research station, but before she can explain further, the facility shatters violently. Water floods in, and everything collapses around Simon, plunging him in a darkness again. Simon wakes up underwater, confused as to how he's alive. He looks at his hands and sees something isn't right. For a moment, it looks like an illusion. His hands are cyborg-like, mechanical in a way, and he's wearing one of those diving suits he saw earlier. But how? Emerging from the ruins, Simon finally sees the scale of Pathos-II, an immense network of sites stretching across the ocean floor. Catherine told him to head for Site Lambda, but the only way there is by shuttle. As Simon crosses the dark seabed, strange robots drift nearby, some babbling incoherently, others hostile, but he manages to avoid them, following the lights toward the shuttle station. Inside, Simon encounters something. A woman tethered to some sort of life support equipment, her body covered by that pulsing biomechanical growth he saw earlier.
They won't let me die. Nothing is allowed to die.
What happened?
Simon doesn't understand what she's saying, but there's no choice. He must unplug her to restore power to the shuttle.
Shit, are you okay?
On the shuttle ride, Simon learns that Pathos-II is an underwater research facility designed to launch space probes and satellites into space using a massive underwater mass driver called the Omega Space Gun. Upon reaching Site Lambda, another corrupted creature stalks him through the halls, but Simon narrowly evades it and finally reaches Catherine's location. But what he finds crushes him.
I'm hurt.
Hey,
No, not you too. was really hoping you were human.
Don't let the circuitry fool you. I was human once.
Can't take any more.
Catherine isn't human. She's a machine, just like the others. Seeing Simon's confusion and despair, Catherine delivers the truth he was dreading. Simon isn't human either. He is also a machine. A scan of his mind now living on a chip in a form he doesn't fully understand. Simon can't believe it, and now he starts to panic. Catherine tries to calm him down, explaining there's still hope. Her project, the Ark, was designed to save humanity after a devastating comet wiped out all life on Earth's surface in the year 2103, and the people at Pathos-II were the only ones left. The plan was to save what was left of humanity by taking scans of people's brains and creating copies of them, putting their minds into an artificial world, a digital paradise where they could live forever. The goal was to launch the Ark into space to escape the dying Earth. Simon takes some time to gather his thoughts. But 2103? That means this is nearly 100 years after his scan. They both quickly make the link to Simon's initial brain scan, but they still struggle to understand how that brain scan from 2015 ended up here, almost a century later. All they know is the Ark is still stranded deep at the bottom of the ocean, and to retrieve it, they'll need a deep-sea vessel known as the Dunbat, currently stored at Site Theta. With Catherine's consciousness now transferred to Simon's Omni-tool, the pair head towards Theta, but the only way forward is down into the abyss. Simon's anxiety grows as he travels towards Theta. He asks Catherine about the pulsing black growths spreading throughout the facility. She explains they're caused by the Warden unit, the WOW, an advanced artificial intelligence built to maintain Pathos-II and maintain operations for the staff. But something went terribly wrong. The WOW began to malfunction, spreading uncontrollably like a biomechanical cancer. When Catherine casually asks Simon to dismantle another robot to retrieve its cortex chip for a task that must be done to progress, he feels a sudden rush of guilt and dread. Each robot he's disconnected so far acted very human, bleeding and suffering. Catherine dismisses his concerns, insisting they're just machines running code. But Simon isn't completely convinced. Despite being a machine himself, Simon still feels human. His emotions, fears, and pain are real enough. If he feels this way, couldn't the others? He feels a rising sense of dread, not just from the robot's suffering, but from the WOW itself. The AI's twisted yet relentless attempts at keeping things up and running are kind of scary. Site Theta is where Simon expects to finally get answers. As he reaches the site where the Dunbat is located, he finds another broken robot outside the facility. But this isn't just any robot. This one holds the consciousness of Robin Bass, a worker at Pathos-II.
We haven't met before.
Is this Ark?
I think we're safe.
Oh, I was so worried something had gone wrong.
What's your name?
Robin Bass, Theta Field Service Technician.
Nice to meet you, Robin. How did you get here?
I got scanned, like the others. And then I killed myself.
She tells Simon that she was scanned for the Ark and that she ended her life immediately after. And it wasn't just her who did this, as Simon soon finds out.
Did Catherine put you up to this? Killing yourself?
Catherine Chun? No. I don't think you understand. She just did scans and put them into the Ark.
Tragically, Robin is completely oblivious to what has happened. She asks Simon if she's on the Ark and wonders where everyone else is. At first, she thinks something must have gone wrong, but Simon doesn't have the heart to tell her the truth, that almost everything that could have gone wrong already has. Site Theta is completely abandoned, or almost. He finally gets a clear look at himself in a mirror, and just like he feared, he's a machine. A cyborg-like diving suit with no trace of his human body left. But it's when Simon finds the staff's quarters that the real picture of what happened here starts to form. He comes across the room of Mark Sarang, an intelligence analyst for Pathos-II. Sarang was one of the few who truly understood what the Ark was, and what it meant to be copied onto it, both physically and spiritually.
Did you know that the human body consists of up to 75 trillion individual cells? They typically don't stay with us till we die. Some live a few days, while others live a few years. We're not affected by their short lifespans, as they're replaced by new cells which help sustain our bodies. I don't think anyone would argue that we ever lose our persona due to this process. Yet we are clearly in a constant state of transformation. Then how do we remain the same? A continuous flow of thought and perception keeps an unbroken chain of continuity that we know as our self. Our conscious mind is not the pattern of our brain, but a continuous emergent entity based on that pattern. When Dr. Chun populates the Ark, she is capturing a moment of our existence and placing it inside the digital world. Soon you and your digital you will grow apart due to diverging experiences, but for a tiny window, you are the very same. With unbroken continuity, it will live on. A fulfilling life, no doubt, no less real than the one from which it was plucked. Now remember, you are not your body. You are the emergent entity. That entity just happens to occupy two places at once for a while. If you took away your body, you would simply be the only one you can be. The you inside the Ark. Let your body die and continue on in the digital paradise among the stars.
His philosophy became a little bit too influential among the staff. Sarang believed that in order to prevent two versions of yourself from existing, you had to end your physical life after being scanned, so the copy would be the only version of you left to live on. This theory of continuity spread quickly, leading to multiple members of the crew ending their own lives, all in hopes of transcending their physical bodies. Some went through with it willingly, others were horrified by the idea, and for good reason. The original and actual person would simply cease to exist if they ended their physical self. This created serious conflict among the staff and eventually led to the Ark project being suspended indefinitely. This entire dilemma starts weighing heavily on Simon, especially when he's forced to do something that feels like a moral compromise. To access the Dunbat and take it out of quarantine, Simon and Catherine need a security cipher. Simon discovers the scan archive room, the place where Catherine conducted and stored the brain scans of the entire crew, and where the Ark project started. It's also where she ran simulations, testing different environments, conditions, and interactions to make sure the minds inside the Ark would survive and feel human. But in order to use the scan room and run simulations, Simon has to restore the connection to the mainframe, where he finds something deeply unnerving. Not only does he come face to face with another mutated creature, but he also discovers bodies, rotting, breathing, and somehow still alive, fused into the pulsing black growth of the WoW infecting the station. They locate a scan of Brandon Wan, one of the staff at Pathos-II who had the security ciphers, and are forced to manipulate him into giving it up.
Made the simulation.
That wasn't so bad. This robot really got me worked up, bastard. What happened? Where did everyone go?
Don't be afraid.
Chun? What happened? I can't see anything. There's nothing here.
There's no need to worry.
No, that's a lie. You're lying.
Okay, calm down, Mr. Wan.
No. Why are you doing this to me? I trusted you, Chun. I trusted you!
Did we just bring that guy to life? I mean, he's a perfect scan, meant for the Ark. He's the real deal. And we turned him off. Took it all away again.
But it's not simple. A brain scan isn't just some dumb AI. It's Brandon himself, his real consciousness in digital form. Every time they run the simulation, he catches on. He realizes something is wrong. Each time they try to trick him into giving the cipher, the stress overwhelms him and the simulation shuts down. Simon becomes more and more uncomfortable with what they're doing, essentially putting Brandon through psychological torture over and over, only to delete him, or technically in theory, kill him each time. Catherine, however, brushes it off as a necessary step. She treats it like debugging a program. It's the final attempt, when Catherine poses as Brandon's partner, that finally works. They get the cipher, but by now, Simon is seriously questioning everything. What are they doing? What are these scans really? If people in this form like Brandon are this easily manipulated, broken, and deleted, is that really a consciousness? Is that really a person? Simon finally learns the truth about himself as he digs through more of the scan archives. The copy of Simon's brain that David Munshi made back in 2015 was later used as an AI legacy template, a foundation for building other AIs, something Simon had agreed to in hopes of helping future research.
The model was sound. It should have worked.
It's not your fault, David.
I really wish things had turned out differently.
Yeah, me too.
I was supposed to save you.
Hey, you got my brain on file. Maybe you can put it to some use.
Yeah, who knows? You'd be okay with that? Using it for my research?
Sure. It's like a part of me lives on or something. Like a donated organ. You know what sucks about dying?
What?
The crash. Everything up till now. The brain damage. You guys, everything. It's made my life so much more real. I started thinking about all the things I was going to do. I'd never been more excited to be alive. All that hope. Wasted.
His condition was never truly cured. He didn't live much long after the scan, but before he died, he gave permission for Munshi to use his scan in future experiments. Simon's digital self had been sitting in a database for nearly a century until someone loaded the scan into a machine, reviving him from where it left off, the exact moment his brain was scanned. But who did it is still a mystery, at least for now. The weight of it all starts to crush him. Seeing what was done to Brandon, how his mind, emotions, his entire identity could be manipulated, tortured, and deleted, and now realizing he's no different, Simon can no longer ignore the truth. Is he even real? If everything he feels, fear, pain, thoughts, can exist as lines of code inside a machine, does that still make him real, or just an imitation? A ghost, pretending to be Simon Jarrett? And if that's true, what does being real even mean anymore? Full of doubt and ashamed of what he's done, Simon heads to the Dunbat. But as he starts it up, something goes wrong. To his horror, it also holds a corrupted human consciousness. As it wakes, it screams in madness, blaming Catherine for its suffering, for what it has become, or rather what he has become, before violently breaking free and sinking, leaving Simon trapped once again. With the Dunbat gone, Simon and Catherine have only one dangerous option left: descending into the abyss on foot. Simon's current body can't withstand the crushing pressures below, so they'll need a special high-pressure power suit. Catherine recalls they were stored at Site Omicron. If they can find one, they'll be able to use an old elevator system designed to transport Pathos-II staff down into the abyss. Just as they're preparing to leave Theta, Catherine realizes there's one small problem. How exactly can Simon be transferred to the Ark? Simon might be a machine, but he's not like the others. He's a humanoid walking talking diving suit. What exactly is inside that suit? What's really inside that helmet? That's when they find a compound examiner, a diagnostic machine used by Pathos-II staff to scan and assess the structural integrity of equipment. It's like a giant MRI machine, and Simon decides to run a scan on himself. What they discover is horrifying. Simon's body isn't entirely robotic. The diving suit he's been walking around in is fused with the rotting corpse of Imogen Reed, Catherine's deceased colleague. His head is a mechanized housing for a cortex chip, which contains his digital consciousness. The whole thing is stitched together with structure gel, the same black goo that's been leaking out of the walls infecting everything in the station. This combination of a corpse, circuitry and gel is why Simon didn't go insane like the other machines. His body still had some biological components keeping his perception of reality stable, almost like when he was human. Now that she understands what Simon really is, Catherine knows that he can, in fact, be transferred to the Ark, giving him the motivation to get it done, to leave this hell behind and reach the digital paradise. On their way to Site Omicron, Catherine explains her belief that the Warden unit is the one responsible for creating beings like Simon. It was the WoW that began uploading brain scans into machines, trying to keep people alive long after life had clearly ended, because it was following a single overriding directive: preserve human life. But as a machine, the WoW couldn't understand what it actually means to be alive. If a body was breathing or even barely functioning, no matter how unnaturally, that was enough. After the comet wiped out most of humanity, the WoW noticed signs of life declining, and it began experimenting. It hijacked brain scans from Pathos-II, the same scans that were supposed to wake up on the Ark, and forced them into robots, bodies, machines, even doors. Desperate to produce anything that resembled life. It was the WoW that activated Simon's brain scan after almost 100 years, inserting it into the corrupted diving suit body. It didn't care who he was, it just saw him as one more chance to tick the box of life preserved. They arrive at Omicron, but something feels off. It's too easy, as if something wanted them to come here. Inside, they reach the storage room where the power suits are kept, and find that only one remains, and it already has a corpse inside. Catherine proposes a solution. If they can retrofit that suit with the electronics just like the ones in Simon's current body, she can transfer his consciousness into it, just like the WoW did before. But this time, they'll do it manually. Simon refuses. He doesn't want to go through that again. Catherine pleads with him, assuring him it's the only way to survive the pressure of the abyss. But Simon doesn't make any promises. He agrees only as a last resort. As Simon explores the site to gather the components needed for the transfer, he begins seeing something strange. A ghostly flickering presence, warping in and out of existence. It's trying to reach out, trying to communicate, but Simon can't make any sense of it. He knows one thing: he has to focus. The power suit is their only way forward. Eventually, Simon collects everything they need. The suit is ready. And now, the moment of truth. He takes a breath, steps into the pilot seat, and Catherine begins the process. Just like before, just like his brain scan back in 2015.
Most expensive camera in the world.
You know, Indian stock photos would steal their souls.
In this case, they'd be right.
There's a flash of light, and then he wakes up. He's in the power suit now. He has no idea what he has just done.
There must be something wrong. Can't you run a diagnosis or something?
What was that?
No, it just...
Why was it still talking?
It's the same like before.
Catherine, why was he still talking?
That's how it works, you know that.
At first, everything seems fine, until he hears a voice. His own voice, still talking. He turns around, confused, and he sees his old body still sitting in the pilot chair, now unconscious, still alive, still him. Simon's heart sinks. He had forgotten how this works. It was never a transfer. It was always going to be a copy. There are now two Simons. He completely loses it. Catherine tries to calm him down, gently reminding him that that's how it works. It's not a magic transfer, you just get copied. But none of it matters. The shock is too much for him. Now he's left with two choices. Either leave and let his old self wake up, alone and abandoned, a fate worse than death. Or do the unthinkable, end his own life, his other life, in his sleep.
Well, what do you want me to do with him? Make friends? Let him know that we have to leave him behind when we go into the abyss?
What if he didn't need to wake up?
You'd do that?
I don't know. Maybe.
set it up for you. Hit the switch if you want to drain his battery. He'll die within a minute. I'd rather not stay plugged in any longer.
Thinking about what just happened, Simon walks in silence towards the elevator, the one that's gonna take him down into the abyss. He straps himself into the seat, and the elevator begins its long descent, both into the ocean and metaphorically into Simon's own thoughts, the reality of what he's done, and what that means for him going forward.
It's dumb luck, right? I woke up in the right body. Basically flipped a coin, and if I had called the wrong side, I'd be rotting away in Omicron. I mean, there's nowhere to know, right? You didn't hit the make sure Simon wakes up in the right body switch, did you? Not that you would know. I mean, he would still claim to be the right Simon.
He reflects on the nature of continuity, of being copied. In his mind, he thinks of it like a coin toss, a 50-50 chance. Either he would wake up in the new body, or be the one left behind. To him, it felt like pure luck that he ended up in the preferred body this time. If he had lost the coin toss, he'd be the Simon left behind at Omicron. The idea makes him both uncomfortable while still giving him hope, not just because of what it meant now, but what it might mean going forward. Everything feels artificial now, like consciousness has no weight anymore, like they're not even sentient, just machines going through the motions, which in a way they are, but that's not entirely true either. Catherine, even as a disembodied voice inside a box, can still think. She remembers. She feels. She can recall emotions from her past memories of who she used to be.
When I was little, I used to climb the stairs all the way to the top of the building. And I can still feel how I had to, tuck my arm so I could push the heavy steel door open. Well, the first time that I dared go up there, I stepped out onto the roof and watched the smog rise and fall over Taipei. I got all the way up to the corner ledge and, I felt the warm wind in my hair.
She tells Simon that her own sense of identity, her sense of being, depends heavily on the system she belongs to. That belonging isn't about her body, it's about the context, the purpose. But before they can talk about it any further, something hijacks the elevator. That ghostly presence Simon had encountered before appears again, this time face to face.
You did it! You did it! I will make preparations.
Before he can process it, everything goes black as he passes out. When he wakes up, the elevator reaches the ocean floor, and it's pitch black, save for the lights from scattered Pathos-II facilities. As he begins walking, things start becoming more and more weird. The WoW hasn't only been corrupting machines and humans, it's been mutating marine life as well, stretching its definition of life as far as it can. Dodging these rabid mutated creatures warped by the WoW, Simon eventually reaches Site Tau, the current location of the Ark, the last place where the Ark was seen before everything went wrong. And almost immediately, he sees the WoW's full impact. Tau is more overrun than any facility he's seen before. It's practically swallowed by the infection. In one of the rooms, he finds something he thought was gone forever. An actual human, a real living, breathing human, not overtaken by the WoW. Her name is Sarah Lindwall, a payload technician who had worked on launching the Ark before everything fell apart. She's alive, but only barely, supported by failing life support and unaware of the true state of the world. Sarah tells Simon she's the only one left at Tau. Everyone else, she believes, is still alive at the other sites. But Simon knows the truth. He's been to those sites. There's no one left anymore. Sarah Lindwall is the last living human on Earth. At first, she's defensive, protective of the Ark. But when Simon tells her he intends to launch it into space, she drops her guard. She gives him the Ark not because she trusts he's gonna follow through with the Ark plan, but because she's too weak to do anything else. Before he leaves, she makes one final request. She wants to die, to be free of the pain, of the loneliness, of being the last. Simon hesitates naturally. Killing her would mean becoming the final hand that ends humanity. But he knows it's what she wants.
Simon, you still there?
I'm here, Sarah.
Don't let him die, okay? Send them out there. To the stars.
With a heavy heart, he turns off her life support. And now with the Ark in hand, he leaves Tao behind. Simon sets out for the final leg of his journey. He's nearly done. Just one task remains. To take the Ark to the Omega space gun at Site Phi, get transferred onto it and launch it into orbit, away from the broken world. But along the way, Simon stumbles across something unexpected. Site Alpha. A location that officially didn't exist. Confidential, restricted to only the highest clearance personnel. This is where the core of the Warden unit is, buried beneath the ocean, spreading its influence throughout the facility. And there, Simon sees it again, the ghostly figure that's been haunting him, now fully revealed.
What the hell is that?
Heart. It controls all the structure gel on Pathos-II. All you need to do is poison the imprint, and the heart will unwillingly spread it across Pathos-II, killing it.
It's Johann Ross, the neuroscientist and AI psychologist who was stationed alone at Alpha to monitor and oversee the WoW. He helped create the system, now he wants to destroy it, and the only one who can do that is Simon. As it turns out, the body Simon now inhabits, the power suit fused with structure gel, which was required to put it together, was infused with a modified toxin designed to destroy the WoW. A failed attempt once, but one that could now succeed. All Simon has to do is reach into the WoW's core and let the corruption in his body do the rest. But that makes him the last surviving being capable of carrying the WoW's patterns. He is now a threat. Johann Ross tries to finish the job, to kill Simon before the WoW can use him to recover, but he's ripped apart by its creatures before he can. Injured and barely holding it together, Simon runs for his life. He escapes the chaos and reaches Site Phi, where the Omega space gun awaits, his last chance to send the Ark and himself to safety. Beaten, tired and hollow, Simon clings to one thought: paradise. Not because it's real, but because it's better. A simulated life of peace is still better than what's left of the Earth now. Inside the payload chamber, Simon finds something he didn't expect: Catherine's body. She made it this far, only to be killed by the very people she trusted. In the end, her colleagues turned on her, paralyzed by fear that the Ark would be destroyed by debris if launched. Catherine struggles to accept it, this betrayal from the last people she ever saw. But there's no time to grieve. Together, they prepare the payload, loading the Ark into the launch chamber. Catherine tells Simon that she'll upload their minds into the Ark at the last moment, simultaneously as it launches. One final transfer. Simon climbs into the pilot seat. The countdown begins.
It's an amazing thing you did. And I want you to know I appreciate it.
Time, 20 seconds.
What's the matter with the upload?
Just give it a second.
I thought you guys would have better bandwidth in the future.
10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6.
You gotta be kidding me!
5, 4, 3,
Come on, load!
2.
Yeah, we made it! Woo! I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon and Omicron. Just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
This is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
Simon is still there, still conscious. He doesn't understand.
Fuck you, Catherine, you lied. And I believed in you and I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot. I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance.
But it worked, exactly as it was supposed to. Did he forget again? Or maybe he just didn't want to believe it. Blinded by desperation, hope, denial. You don't get transferred, you get copied. His copied consciousness wakes up on the Ark, surrounded by light, peace, and the illusion of triumph. In this digital Eden, Simon believes it worked. He thinks he won the coin toss. Catherine is there too, calm and content. Together, they drift silently through space, far away from the dying world they left behind. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the ocean, Simon sits there in silence. The gun has fired and the Ark is gone, and he's still there, alone, confused, and utterly broken. Catherine is gone too, her system fried after one final outburst of frustration, furious that Simon still didn't understand how it all worked. Now there's no one left, no one to talk to, no one to blame. Waiting to die in the cold, silent depths, forgotten and left behind, while the rest of the world fades with him, letting nature have the final say, as it always does. Simon was never getting on the Ark, ever. At least not the version we played as from the start of the game. Simon was doomed to die at the bottom of the ocean the moment the WoW brought him to life at Upsilon. The coin toss was always an illusion. It was never a 50-50 chance. It was never a fair game. The only fairness was in knowledge. If you truly understood how it worked, like Catherine did, then the outcome was always 100% certain. The coin toss wasn't about chance. It was about accepting what will be, regardless of what you want, or even need. There were 4 Simons throughout the story. The original Simon, the diving suit Simon, the power suit Simon, and the Simon on the Ark. For simplicity, let's refer to them as Simon 1, Simon 2, Simon 3, and Simon 4. They were all Simon, but objectively, each was a different person. Catherine had already explained how it worked. Simon had seen it firsthand. Simon 2 was a copy of Simon 1, who had died back in 2015. And again, Simon 3 watched Simon 2 get left behind during the suit transfer. So why all the confusion at the end? Why did he still think he had a chance? If you pay close attention to Catherine's personality and the way she speaks, it's debatable what her exact intentions were. She wasn't malicious, but she was very careful with her words. She often told Simon he'd be transferred into a new body, both during the suit switch and the Ark upload. She didn't emphasize that it would be a copy. Now, some might call that manipulative, but let's look at the bigger picture here. At the start, after discovering the Ark was still on Earth, Catherine had given up on it. It was Simon who insisted they find it and launch it. He kept hope alive, even when she couldn't. But they each saw hope differently. Catherine, as we learned through logs and her own words, was never a people person. Even when Simon asked her how it felt being trapped inside a box, she admitted she never felt quite right in her real body either. Catherine saw the world through more of an objective lens, black and white instead of grey. To her, as long as Catherine survived, she survived. The version didn't matter. Simon, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. It mattered deeply to him that he, the one doing the thinking now, continued to exist. Catherine accepted the survival of identity. Simon needed the survival of self. To him, each copy of himself was a different person, and he was the real one. When he has his breakdown at the end and shouts,
"They're not us! They're not us!"
that's his entire repressed belief spilling out. That's the core dilemma of SOMA. Simon couldn't accept the idea of a copy living on as him. And he wasn't wrong. They were different people, just as Mark Serang had predicted. Think about it this way. Even if it feels like the next copy always wins the coin toss, that isn't always true. The very first Simon could be seen as the real winner, because it was his copy that went on to suffer. If the original ends up with a better fate, they win the toss. If the copy ends up better off, then they win. But the outcome can only be judged in hindsight. The toss doesn't happen at the moment of scanning. It happens later, shaped entirely by what life does next. By shutting down Simon II after the transfer, he technically won. He was spared the horror of what just happened and passed away peacefully in his sleep. But if we never shut him down, he would have woken up alone, trapped in the room with no purpose and no way out. Simon III got the power suit to move forward with the mission, only to be left behind. Simon IV got everything he hoped for. So it was never a coin toss for the person being copied, because they couldn't possibly know how things would play out. It was a coin toss only for us, the observers, watching it all unfold. Catherine had no problem with her copy surviving, neither did the continuity believers who ended their own lives, not because it was ideal, but because it was the only option left. Or maybe they had fully accepted that the copy wasn't them exactly, but were okay with it anyway. Serang's theory wasn't about hope, it was about sparing people from the despair Simon III faced. Because while each copy starts as the same person, over time they diverge, shaped by different experiences. Think of it this way, if Simon III met Simon IV, would he be happy for him or resentful? If there was only one spot left on the ark, would they fight over it? Every version of Simon wanted to be the one that lived on. He couldn't cope with the idea that his story would end while another Simon, identical at first, got to move forward. So his belief in the coin toss became a coping mechanism that maybe, just maybe, he could be the one who makes it. There's no randomness here, only the direction life takes after the copy is made. That's what decides who gets to live and who gets left behind. It's a poetic kind of determinism. Life dealt you a bad hand, what now? Or maybe life gave you a second chance. People don't cling to comforting lies because they're fooled. They cling to them because the truth would break them. Denial doesn't come from ignorance, it comes from fear. Simon couldn't let go of that denial until the end, when reality forced it on him. What makes it worse is the cruel symmetry of it all. When Simon III watched Simon II stay behind, he held on to hope. He comforted himself with the idea that he was the one who carried on. But now Simon III faces the same fate and realizes he's just as replaceable. The hope that once kept him calm is now used against him. The plan worked, but not for him, just like it didn't for Simon II. When he was trapped at the bottom of the ocean, alone, forgotten, it finally hit. He was never getting on the ark. Catherine always knew this. She knew Simon believed in the 50-50 myth, but she also knew the version of Simon she was speaking to would never be the one who woke up on the ark, and she was okay with that. Catherine knew if Simon understood the full truth before each transfer, he would have walked away. The ark would have never launched. At the space gun, she timed the transfer to happen alongside the launch, ensuring he'd never have the chance to say no. So in the end, the idea of Simon made it, but the Simon we played as, Simon II, Simon III, did not. That's why saying there's no coin toss isn't quite right either, because the illusion of a toss still exists in the outcome. The duality is real, but it's not luck, it's not chance, it's purely deterministic. Out of all four Simons, the original won the toss by escaping the hell that followed. Simon II lost during the transfer, Simon III won for a while, but lost in the end, and Simon IV, safe on the ark, truly one. Unless life had other plans for the Ark, who knows? In this particular story, each version had a side of the coin permanently assigned to them, determined by the events that followed. No matter how many times it was flipped, it would always land the same way. No randomness, no fairness, just inevitability. What's most tragic and yet most necessary is that Simon and Catherine needed each other to complete the Ark's mission, even though they were never truly on the same page. Catherine believed that launching the Ark was enough, that legacy mattered more than presence. Simon, on the other hand, needed to be the one who made it. For him, meaning only existed if he lived to see it through. She saw hope as symbolic, he saw it as survival, and in the end, both were right. Catherine's detachment gave the mission structure. Simon's desperation gave it purpose. Without one or the other, the Ark would still be sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Even Simon too, who got exactly what Simon 1 wished for, a second shot at life, found himself in a world where that life no longer had any meaning. Because sometimes fate gives you what you want and takes away everything else. And maybe that was for the greater good. Because by then, Catherine understood what Simon was still trying to accept. Their lives didn't matter anymore. But maybe launching the Ark was the last meaningful thing either of them could do. SOMA never truly had a primary antagonist or villain. The comet was just nature taking its course, and the WoW, despite being the source of so much horror, wasn't evil. It couldn't be. It was a machine, doing exactly what it was programmed to do. Preserve life no matter the cost. It had been on its own for just a year, no oversight, no input, yet it was expected to carry out its mission of sustaining human existence blindly and without comprehension. Like a child solving a puzzle with no picture on the box, working through trial and error, driven solely by results. It didn't know what life should look like, only that it had to keep it going. Maybe if given more time, it might have developed better methods, but we'll never know. Even the comatose humans hooked up to its systems still had faint brain activity, just enough for the WoW to consider them alive. Perhaps in its long-term plan, it intended to restore them fully in better, more durable forms, because it quickly realized that organic bodies were far too fragile. With its primary goal of keeping the remaining humans alive in a vegetative state indefinitely, the WoW also seemed to develop a kind of secondary method, attempting to restore consciousness. It began uploading brain scans, most of them taken from the pilot seats that humans once used to remotely control machines, into robotic shells. These attempts were known as Mockingbirds. Most were unstable, many failed entirely, but a rare few, like Simon and Catherine, stayed coherent. But the WoW had no concept of empathy, no moral compass. If a person begged to die after being forced into a broken machine or deformed body, the WoW wouldn't stop them from suffering, because shutting them down would violate its one rule to sustain life. At the end of the day, it was still just lines of code. It had no desire or will of its own, only a rigid directive left behind by its creators long gone. But honestly, it's not just the WoW or the coin toss that's scary. SOMA is one of the scariest non-horror games out there. Not because of the monsters, but because of what it makes you think about. It's the dilemma itself. The fact that there's no win, no loss, no escape, just a question that's quietly waiting for humanity to answer. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon enough for it to be uncomfortable. So what does it actually mean to be human? What would mockingbirds like Carl or Robin say if someone sat them down and told them what really happened to them? What exactly is consciousness, both according to our beliefs and science? If we look at modern AIs, they can talk, reason, and contemplate decisions like us, but they're still not human. We can clearly tell an AI apart from a person. So what is it that sets us apart? Is it our ability to make quick connections, our intuition, our gut feelings, our capacity for humor, nuance, and wit? There is no single accepted definition of consciousness. The formal definition of consciousness is the state of being aware of and responsive to one's surroundings. In simpler terms, it's the feeling of knowing where and what you are. We are humans, and anyone you ask this question will also be human. So naturally, the first question is, what does it mean to be human? The answer might be subjective, but it's relatively straightforward. Some people might provide a general biological definition. Others might emphasize our greater capacity for sapience, which makes us wiser than animals. But the deeper you debate it, the more you encounter our profound capacity for metacognition. It's right there in our name, human being, emphasizing the word be, meaning to exist. This circles us back to the definition of consciousness, knowing where and what we are. So it's safe to assume that all this thought process happens in the brain. But not everyone's brain is the same. Does that mean not everyone's consciousness is the same? Everyone can contemplate others' consciousness. Multiple people can share similar viewpoints on it. But does that mean we all do? What about people whose brains aren't fully capable anymore, broken by injury, or those born with deficiencies? If you look closely at the Mockingbirds, nearly all display symptoms resembling certain brain disorders. One of these disorders, anosognosia, particularly stands out. Anosognosia is a disorder in which individuals are unaware or cannot recognize their own neurological or psychiatric deficits. For instance, a person with anosognosia who can't move their left side of their body might confidently claim they can. If asked to move their right arm or leg, they'll do it easily. If asked to move their left side, they'll believe they've done it normally. When confronted about not moving, they'll fabricate an excuse. This resembles denial, except a healthy brain internally recognizes the truth, even if outwardly denying it. In anosognosia, the brain physically cannot reason with the evidence presented to it. Frictional Games released a supplemental mini-series for SOMA exploring events leading up to the game. In one episode, Imogen Reed and Adam Galaski interview a mockingbird containing Adam's consciousness. When asked to stand up, he claims he does so, but nothing physically happens. When asked how many paper clips are on the table, he first says 2, then corrects himself to 3, both incorrect, and explains it's hard to see from down there. When Reed points out he previously said he was standing, he defensively insists he never said that. Does that sound familiar? Could this mockingbird suffer from anosognosia? But how? It's a machine without a biological brain. SOMA is fictional, but it highlights the reality of disorders that people actually suffer from. Another rare disorder, Anton syndrome, affects the occipital lobe, causing total blindness. Yet patients deny their blindness and vividly describe things they see, or simply make stuff up. Their brain cannot consciously process the lack of visual input, and instead creates detailed but false visual information, much like Adam's mockingbird did. The mind doesn't notice something's wrong and just fills in the gaps. Almost everyone's brain does something similar on a smaller scale. It doesn't process raw sensory information directly. It interprets it, guesses, and fills in the gaps, always working in context. A very common example is the color contrast illusion. We can even test it right now on screen. Box A is gray and box B is white, except they're not. They're the exact same color. Using an eyedropper proves they share the exact same color code. Your brain created the difference based on context and surrounding colors. Even without any disorders, our brains constantly fabricate small details. Could this explain why Carl couldn't recognize he was a robot, or why Robin couldn't see she wasn't actually on the Ark? Even Simon initially saw himself as human. Were their brains automatically filling in information they were consciously blind to? So would it be safe to conclude that consciousness resides in the brain? If we transferred your brain into another person, would you become them? Or if we replace someone's cells with yours, one by one, at what point would you officially become them? Or would you ever? Does digitally creating your brain inside a machine mean we can produce endless copies of you? The more you think about it, the more it raises questions than answers. But I guess we also have a responsibility to see this morally. Instead of taking into account consciousness, we also take into account the soul. If we ask the world, would you rather die as nature intended, or live longer but give up your body? How divided would we actually be? It might be easy for you to say I would want to live and die out naturally, but for some people whose bodies are a source of suffering, that offer might seem like mercy. But let's not forget, it's always the copy that carries on. The original is still left behind. So even in salvation, someone still suffers. And if only a handful choose that path, becoming digital minds inside machines, it's a very slippery slope. What happens when that becomes normal? What happens to the meaning of death? There's something deeply unsettling about a consciousness made of wires and lines of code. Even if it thinks like you, speaks like you, feels like you, is it really you? If our identity can be copied, if artificial memories give us a sense of self, what even makes us unique anymore? The game shows us that it's not just our bodies that define us. It's our character, our personality, our soul. The body is just a product of the mind that controls it. We are who we are because of how our brains were calibrated, by biology, by life, by chance. If we learn to recreate that, are we slowly inching towards playing God, or just cheap imitations chasing the beauty of randomness? Creating truly random artificial life is technically impossible, since computers can't produce genuine randomness, only patterns that appear random through algorithms. That's the real horror, the question of what we become when the natural limits are gone. A unique life that never ends might also be a unique life that can never be created again. Life on Earth is already scary, because either there's other life out there, or we're completely alone. From the inside, the Ark is a paradise. From outside, it's just a box. And for the people living in the Ark, they're frozen in time. No updates, no new inputs, no evolution. Just a museum of humanity's last thoughts, running in circles forever. And if life is truly that rare in the universe, what makes this simulation, this paradise, sacred, when it can be copied endlessly? Maybe it's not the setting, it's the people. The unique personalities, the unrepeatable souls inside. That's why this scares me, because one day we might just be facing the same dilemma. What really makes you human? Your flesh, your mind, or just the illusion that you were ever you at all? Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. The terminally ill Simon and the people left behind at Pathos-II weren't actually very different. They were all destined to die eventually, but a small sliver of them lived on. Whether that sliver was real or just a shadow depends entirely on your perspective. But maybe that's what makes us so special. We're not copies or lines of code. We're temporary, flawed, and real. And perhaps that's all we ever needed to be. Because every laugh, every moment of pain, every quiet breath we take under a real sky, it matters precisely because it won't last forever. We're here for a good time, not a long time. And that's okay. Because as we all already know, life isn't precious because it lasts. It's precious because it ends.